Hello, I'm Matt Bell, and I've had the pleasure of being associated with Christian Community Credit Union for over 2 years. My wife Jude and I are members of the credit union, and I'm honored to be sponsored by the credit union in the writing that I do in my blog and in the speaking I do at workshops around the country. As a full-time biblical money management writer and speaker, I interact with literally thousands of people each year, and everyone I've met has been impacted in some way by the recession. In fact, I've started using a photograph, a really compelling photograph of the aftermath of Hurricane Ike in my workshops. And in this photograph, which blew through parts of the United States a couple of years ago, you see a community, or what's left of a community, along the Texas Gulf Coast. There used to be hundreds of homes in this community, but they were all wiped out by the hurricane, all except one. And the one that stood standing, it's amazing, it looks virtually untouched. Well, people got curious about the owners of this house and how did their home stay standing after all their neighbors' homes were reduced to piles of rubble. And so when they caught up with them, the owners explained that they had been through a hurricane before. They had lost a home to a hurricane before. And so when they rebuilt, they did so in a way that their new home could withstand the strongest of hurricanes. When I saw that photograph, I thought of two things. I thought about our economy over the past couple of years, in which a lot of economic wind and rain has blown through many of our lives, and it has taken down many people's homes, both literally and figuratively. But I also thought about the parable of the wise and the foolish builder, which says this: everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise person who built their home on the rock. The rains came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock, which is God's Word. And that's what I teach in my workshops and in my writing, is how to build our financial lives, how to build our financial homes on the solid rock, the timeless truths of God's Word. The recession has impacted all of us, and one of the ways it has impacted people is that many people have grown distrustful of financial institutions. In fact, Forrester, the market research firm, recently interviewed over 4,000 people, asking them whether they agree with this statement: my financial provider has my best interests at heart, not just their bottom line. And what do you think they found? After tallying up the results, the bottom 7 slots were taken up by some of our country's largest banks. Just 30% or fewer of their customers believe that their financial provider has their best interests at heart, not just their bottom line. But at the very top of the findings were credit unions, where some 70% of credit union members agreed with that statement. A Forrester analyst explained that, it makes sense. Credit unions operate under a different business model. They're owned by their members, and so of course, member service is front and center. And a more recent CNN story about credit unions pointed out that credit unions are nonprofit, and so they're able to offer better interest rates and lower fees than banks. We are very pleased to be members of a credit union, but not just any credit union. We're pleased to be members of Christian Community Credit Union, and that's really for at least 2 reasons. One has to do with the financial integrity of Christian Community Credit Union. You may know that some 170 banks failed last year, and today some 700 additional banks are listed as problem banks by the FDIC. In an era when so many banks are in financial trouble, it's reassuring to us, as I'm sure it is to you, that Christian Community Credit Union is in strong financial standing. The other aspect, the other reason why we're pleased, especially to be members of Christian Community Credit Union, has to do with the fact that whereas banks use their profits to dole out millions of dollars in bonuses to employees that bring in the most business, the money that we put on deposit with Christian Community Credit Union is used to fund the building of new churches and to further the work of many excellent Christian ministries, and those investments always pay an amazing positive return. One of the reasons I believe that Christian Community Credit Union has stood the test of time is that it was built, it was founded, and it continues to be operated on the solid rock, the timeless truths of God's Word. God is faithful in good times, in bad times, at all times.